Today we will be discussing about strain gauge first. Okay. The different features of strain gauge. So the last lecture we discussed about the introduction to experimental stress analysis. Okay. So here if you click this particular link, you will get this slide which is downloaded here, and let me explain from this particular slide. Okay. So whatever we discussed in the last class, that was the basic concept of measuring system, etc., etc. And today our topic is strain gauge, and we will be discussing about electrical resistance strain gauge. Okay, so let's start with this. So this is the thing. Now in strain gauge you will sometimes find these two spelling for gauge. Okay. The first one is a British spelling and the second one is American spelling, right? So here I will be following the British spelling, that means this particular spelling for gauge. Okay. So these other methods we have we discussed about these methods in the last class. Okay. Now let us go into the strain gauge. You see what are the figures here. Okay. This is a particular strain gauge. This is mounted on a helical coil spring. These are some strain gauges mounted in an object, which is in general it is assumed that it is a bidirectional stress field, and such things are sometimes clubbed into a single piece, which are known as the strain rosette. Rosette analysis also we will be discussing. Now what is resistance strain gauge? So the development came after an invention or experimental finding by Lord Kelvin, who was named as William Thomson, and afterwards the British scientist was given the lordship. So the experiment was carried out in 1856, where what was the observation? That certain electrical conductor, they exhibit a change in electrical resistance with change in strain. Okay. So this change in electrical resistance resulting from mechanical strain, this is the fundamental principle upon which electrical resistance strain gauge operate. So then starting from this experimental observation, gradually the strain gauges developed, various types of strain gauges. So what is a strain gauge? It's an analog electrical sense. It measures strain at the surface of a body, because we can only fix the strain gauge at the surface of the body. We cannot fix it inside the body. That's not possible. Okay. So this strain gauge measures strain on the surface, and the basic principle is when the strain gauge is subjected to a strain field, its electrical resistance changes, and that is what we measure. Okay. And as the strain gauge is fixed by using some method, which is basically gluing. Glue means some adhesive, okay, by which strain gauge is fixed on the surface of the object. So it is assumed that the strain of the body is transferred into the strain in the conductor by which this strain gauge is made. Okay. So then the change in resistance, this is proportional to amount of stretching they experience and reflect a change in voltage across designated element. That means this part is our measurement unit. Okay. And in the measurement unit, the strain gauge itself is an element, because the change in resistance of the strain gauge, that is measured in the electrical circuit measurement system. Okay. So strain gauge itself is a element. Let us see the construction. So, this particular one is this is known as a foil strain gauge, okay. But you see, this foil strain gauge is a development in later part, okay. Whatever Lord Kelvin observed, he observed for an electrical conductor. So, initial strain gauges were something like this. They were wear type strain gauges, okay. Wear type, that means their construction was somewhat like this, understand? Yes. It's a thin wear and this is fixed on a surface enclosed in some enclosures, and then this is attached on the body, okay, by using some adhesives. So, this type of strain gauges, they came in 1930s, and the particular one we are discussing here, they are known as foil strain gauges. It is a later development in 1952. So, this is what is shown here, because nowadays this foil type strain gauges are in use, okay. Although wear type strain gauges, they were a part of the development, but nowadays you will find this foil type strain gauges everywhere, okay. They have some additional advantages, we will see to it. So, working principle is the starting gauge length is deformed to a final gauge length with a proportional change in electrical resistance. This is the fundamental principle. And what are the components here? It's active grid section. So, you understand from this figure which one is the active grid, okay. In this part where we have a wear, you understand this wear? Yes, sir. S-shaped elongate with elongated arm, there are certain curvature. So, this is not a wear, okay. So, how these foils are made? There is a initial material. See, this particular area was a thin strip of metal, some metal, okay. The material of the strain gauge was there, and from which some part is etched out, okay. So, the remaining part is like this. So, what it contains, there are two portions, okay, and you see these two portions are quite enlarged. So, where we attach external wear. So, the measurement unit is connected in these tabs. These are known as soldering tabs. Soldering is done here. So, this is the extension or the wear which is coming from the measurement unit. Which one is active section? This is known as active gauge length, and of course, instead of using a single or 2 or 3 number of these, say, let us say these are the wears. The total length of this wear would increase if we increase the width of this active gauge length. We can accommodate more length of this wear, okay. But then again, there are some problem if we make the width too large, okay. It measures the change in strain of an wide area, over an wide area. So, actually what we measure is basically strain at a point. What is that point? You see here, there is a point marked. The point is marked here. Yes, understand, this is the point. So, which is shown in the covering, okay, by this alignment marks. This is clear? So, this alignment marks are more elaborate. That means, if you see here, you see these are some more alignment marks by which you can place the strain gauge at an 45-degree angle as well. Okay, that is clear. Okay. Now, what else is there? The strain gauge, it can measure strain in one direction. Okay. Usually, this orientation of these wires, they are the direction in which they are most sensitive to strain changes. But it is not that if there is a strain applied perpendicular to it, then there also it will suffer some change in length coming from that Poisson's ratio.
Yes.
That effect is there. Okay, or if it is in a bidirectional strain field. Understand? Then also these wires, they will suffer some change in resistance. So those things we will discuss afterwards. Right now, let us say that the direction of this wire and the principal strain direction, they are identical. Okay. So next part is the area contains a single continuous wire. This is obvious, starting from one solder tab. If you follow the line, you will come to the other solder tab. So between these two tabs, there is a continuous wire. Okay. Now this wire resistance, if this resistance is R, the wire's electrical resistance is R, say. What is the value of this R? Okay. This is equal to rho into L by A. Rho is a property of this material, strain gauge material, known as resistivity, electrical property of the wire material. And then what happens when this particular strain gauge, this is a conductor, if it is in a strain field, its resistance will change. So this is what Lord Kelvin has observed. Now we have to find out what is that change in resistance. Okay. Now you see what happens if this strain gauge is part of an electrical circuit like this. Okay. Then initially there was a voltage drop across this resistance.
Yes.
So if we put a voltmeter, a galvanometer, right, across this resistance, we will get a voltage reading, say E0, right? This is it. Now, when the strain gauge is in a particular strain field, its resistance will change. So that change in resistance is this delta Rg. This R suffix G is the gauge resistance, initial gauge resistance. This is the change. And due to this change in resistance, this voltage drop across the resistor, that will also change.
Yes.
And this change in voltage, that we can measure in the electrical circuit. Okay. And what is assumed here? The change in resistance is proportional to the change in strain.
Yes.
And if we can measure what is the change in this voltage, right? So that is basically a measure of the change in resistance. So this measure will help us to find out the change in strain.
Yes.
Okay. This is the fundamental definition of strain. So if we can find out what is the strain, then from the strain value we will find out what is the stress at this point. Okay. Of course, this is easy for an uniaxial stress field, right?
Yes.
For a biaxial stress field, this is not so easy, but that part we will discuss afterwards. Now let us see what is the change in resistance. Okay. The resistance of the conductor is given by this relation, and there is a change in resistance. So that change in resistance is coming from the change in these three parameters: the resistivity, the length, and the area of course. Now here, what is the unit of this resistivity? Quite clearly, this is R into A by L. R is the resistance in ohm. So this unit is ohm into millimeter meter, some length unit. Okay, this part is clear. Then, in such a scenario, what is a change in resistance? Let us differentiate dr. Okay. What it would be? So it would be a differential of this rho, this L, this A, etc. So first, let us take this is a change in this resistivity. So this is delta of rho, and this L by A, it remains as a constant here. Okay. The next part is, say now, this is a change in L. This rho and A, rho by A, it remains constant. We have a change in resistance. Okay. The third part is rho and L, they are remaining constant. We have to differentiate this 1 by A. The differentiation is minus A to the power minus 2, right? So minus 1 by A square. Okay, and then this dA, delta A is there. This is the differentiation. Okay, that's clear. So from here, let us do one thing. The left hand side was dr, okay, that is divided by r. Okay. So divide this first term by r. What is r? Rho into L by A. This L by A and this L by A gets cancelled. We have d rho by rho. The second term, divide it again by r. R is rho by A into L. So this rho by A and this rho by A gets cancelled. We have delta L by dl by L. And similarly, for the third term, we put it like this. Okay, we'll get this dA by A. Okay, this part is clear. Now this is what we have observed. Let us make another observation. This strain is delta L by L, right? And then what about the area, cross-sectional area? So area is something which is a square of the lateral dimension. If this is square, area is say A into A, or if it is circular, this is pi by 4 into d squared, say. Then due to this strain field, what is the strain in transverse direction? Minus nu into epsilon.
Yes.
Nu is Poisson's ratio, right? That we know. So we can say that change in cross-sectional area is 1 minus this nu into epsilon, because it is contracting usually if there is a stretching in the strain gauge. And the square is coming because area contains square of the sides. In some way it's a square of the length unit, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is changed area,
Yes.
and this part is the original area. So now from here, let us take A as constant. So what is our dA by A? From here, this is 1 minus nu into epsilon whole square.
Yes.
So this 1, and from here we are also having a 1, that gets cancelled.
Yes, sir.
The second term is minus twice nu into epsilon, which is written as dl by L.
Yes, sir.
This part is nu square into epsilon means dl by L whole square. As epsilon is small quantity, its square is becoming much smaller. We are neglecting this. So ignoring the higher power of strain epsilon square. And by substitution means what we are substituting? This dA by A we are substituting here.
Yes.
So what it would be? Minus of minus twice nu dl by L, right?
Yes, sir.
Now observe from here we had a dl by L and this is becoming plus twice nu dl by L. So it is 1 plus twice nu dl by L plus d rho by 2. Very clear. Now what is dl by L? There is epsilon. So this dr by r is change in resistance, rate of change of resistance, and if we divide it by epsilon, what we get in the right hand side? This is 1 plus twice nu, and here we have another term which is the rate of change of resistivity per unit strain, right? So this whole thing is called a gauge factor. Is clear? The right hand side what we are having is gauge factor. So if this gauge factor is constant, right, then what we can say? This change in resistance is equal to gauge factor into epsilon.
Yes.
Or if we can measure the change in resistance, then our epsilon is this change in resistance by gauge factor. This is clear? So this is how we can measure the strain at this point, because we can measure the change in resistance at that point.
Yes.
This is clear? So the important point is we must know what is the gauge factor.
Yes.
So this is specific to these strain gauges. Now these strain gauges are not an ordinary thing. Okay, this is what you have to purchase. These things you have to purchase from the strain gauge manufacturer. Okay. So there are certain techniques of making these strain gauges, calibrating these strain gauges, etc., etc. So this gauge factor is provided by the manufacturer only. That is what we have to note only. We can select a particular gauge factor suitable for our application of experimental stress analysis. This is the thing. Now let us see this thing further. Is it a constant or not? So this is gauge factor, right? So now if there is no change in temperature, at least we can say there is no change in Poisson's ratio. It's a property of the material only. So first term, second term, they are constant.
Yes.
What about the third term? So this thing requires a calibration for gauge factor. For a particular strain gauge, this calibration is carried out by the strain gauge manufacturer. Okay. So how this calibration is done? Performed by measuring the relative change in resistance stretched by a reference strain. Okay. So we require a linearity of this thing. Okay. In that case, we have a constant gauge factor there. So gauge factor values, they are supplied with the gauges. That means in the packet or package containing strain gauges, they are marked. Okay, and this gauge factor, there are some provision for measurement of this change in resistance. That means from here there are soldering tabs, right? From here these wires, they are connected with the measurement unit. So a strain gauge measurement unit again is a special type of measurement unit. It is not an ordinary voltmeter as shown in this diagram. It's a special type of instrument known as the strain indicator. So those strain indicators are for the purpose of strain measurement only. Okay. So they are those strain indicators or the instrumentation part. It has a provision to incorporate the gauge factor. Okay, because different strain gauge manufacturer, they have different strain gauge values, but those strain gauge values do not vary widely. Okay. So that particular value we can enter into the instrument itself to get the strain reading directly. Okay, that is there. Now the approximate gauge factor value is 2. Actually, if you see here, this is 1. This new value for steel is approximately 0.3, 0.2829, etc. For aluminium, it's 0.31, 32, 33, etc. And the extreme value is 0.5 if there is no change in volume. Okay. So in that case, the gauge factor is 2. So that way, the gauge factor value is approximately around 2. Okay. So this is the thing. This is how we measure strain by using strain gauge. So it has two parts. One is the gauge itself. We must know the features of the gauge. The other part is the instrumentation part. So that is equally important. Okay, that we will be discussing in a separate lecture. The next lecture will focus on strain gauge instrumentation. Right. So let us see what is strain gauge sensitivity. So this is gauge factor basically. Okay, because the gauge factor is this change in resistance per unit strain, right? So this gauge factor is sensitivity of the strain gauge.
Yes.
Right. Resistance change with strain according to this thing. So this equation is simply this equation.
Yes, sir.
Delta is R is multiplied on the right hand side. Okay, clear. However, this resistance change is very small fraction of the gauge nominal resistance. So this presents major challenge to the goal of measuring strain. What does it mean? This change in resistance value is very low. Okay. Because we have already seen this gauge factor value is around 2.
Yes, sir.
And that is why in our previous lecture when we had discussed about semiconductor strain gauges, capacitor strain gauges, what are the major use of those strain gauges? They have very high sensitivity. Okay. But those are special type for ordinary application. We cannot use them. Our gauge factor is limited to a value of 2. We cannot increase it to some extent. So this resistance change in usual case is very low. Let us take an example. Say the example is tensile force makes a elongation of 0.01 millimeter on a specimen of 100 millimeter length. Okay. So what is strain value? Delta L is 0.01. The initial length is 100. So this is the value 10 to the power minus 4. And this is expressed as 100 into 10 to the power minus 6. So usually this strain are expressed as a microstrain value. Okay. So this is 100 microstrain. So let us take this example where the strain gauge resistance is 350 ohm. Okay. The gauge factor is around 2. This is what is the strain reading. This is the strain.
Yes.
We put it here. So what is that? Change in resistance. This is 0.07 ohm. Right? So you see, for a resistance of 350 ohm, the change in resistance is 0.07, which is 0.02%. That means 0.0002. Now this 100 microstrain, for an aluminium we have an E value, right? It's about 70 MPa or something.
Yes, sir.
It's 70 GPa, so 100 Microstrain is about 7 MPa of stress in aluminium. For steel, it would be somewhat higher, it would be 20 MPa. So, this is how we measure the strain using strain gauge. Now, there are different features there. So, gauges are usually limited to maximum strain of 1 to 2%. This 1% means 10,000, 2% means 20,000 microstrain. This much of strain, if the strain gauge is subjected to this much of strain, there are some problems. We will see to it what are the problems. Now, some gauges it can measure up to 5 to 10%. Now, there are certain gauges which are specially designed for measurement very high and single cycle strain. Okay, these are called post-tilt. So, what does it mean? This strain gauge, okay, if we subject this strain gauge in a field where the material itself yields, then the gauge factor of the strain gauge is no longer valid.
Yes.
So, use of this strain gauge is possible only for single use. Then there are some other factors like the fatigue, repeated stress, alternating stress field. When a strain gauge is subjected to that, it affects the life of the strain gauge. Then the current through the strain gauge, it also affects its performance. So, that is why there are certain limitations in measuring the maximum value of strain. In extreme cases, when we have to use such type of stress field, there are special gauges, or we know that we have to use it for a single cycle only. Afterwards, we have to replace it. Okay. So, strain gauges in an experiment is usually consumable. You have to use it, and afterwards you have to replace the strain gauge altogether. And then what are the other characteristics? The linearity of the gauge material that we have seen, because the gauge factor itself requires that part. Okay. Otherwise, the gauge factor we cannot use. Transverse sensitivity of the gauge, it also affects there. Right. Because even if our, say, stress field is uniaxial, that also produce some strain in transverse direction. So, that effect has to be taken care of. So, there is a transverse sensitivity of the gauge, it is always there. So, this is also a part of our strain gauge specification. The manufacturer specifies strain gauge, the transverse sensitivity, the temperature, etc. The mechanism, lead wire connection mechanism, that means how they would be connected. Okay, the type of connecting material, again the strain gradient means this particular value, how much strain it can withstand. This hysteresis effect means the fatigue type of loading, if the stress field is like that, then how much it can sustain. Okay. Afterwards, there is this zero shift phenomena, etc. Then there is dynamic response, that means how fast strain changes when the stress changes in the specimen. So, this is basically the time lag. Okay. Strain gauge does not have a very good dynamic response, so they are not meant for dynamic application. In such applications, we have to use piezo crystal based strain gauges. Right, in previous slide we had some discussion of piezo crystal based strain gauge. Those are special purpose. Now, this gauge current heating effect, this part will be obvious when we will discuss about the measurement unit part. So, change in resistance is measured through a measurement unit, a circuit is there, instrumentation part is there, by which there is a current which is passed through this strain gauge. Okay. This is the thing, we have to pass a current through this strain gauge. So, obviously, this voltage will increase if the magnitude of current is more, right? But we cannot increase that current as we wish. That is not possible because there is a heating effect of that current. Okay? And for excessive heating, this wear of the strain gauge, it is very thin, it can burn out. That sort of possibility is there. Of course, the heating, the local heating of the strain gauge, in this region it will be generated. That again will affect the gauge factor. So, these are the factors or characteristics, and noise from the other sources. Okay. So, here the types of resistance strain gauges, the foil type we have seen, there are wear type. So, historically wear type strain gauges were developed first, then we have foil strain gauges now, and recent developments semiconductor and other type, capacitive, etc., which is not in much use nowadays, still they are under development, under calibration sort of thing, special purpose. Now, let us see, this is how the construction is. This active gauge part we have already seen. Now, you see this metal, the metal foil from which this thin wear part is etched out, this is enclosed in laminate film. This part is clear. So, there is a top layer, there is a bottom layer, okay. And then this whole thing is then cemented, okay, on the specimen, right. So, this is the foil, the metallic part, then the top and bottom covering, they are fixed by some adhesive. Okay. So, from this overlay to this backing, this part, this is the thickness of the strain gauge that we get from the manufacturer. And then in the site on the specimen for which we are going to measure the strain, we have to fix this strain gauge, this part, by applying another adhesive. This is clear? This is the specimen on which this strain gauge will be mounted. This is the bare strain gauge. Is it clear? So, this is the whole thing. Okay, right. What else is there? From this laminate film, there is a portion which contains these solder tabs. Okay. So, there are 2 wear, 3 wear, this type of. These wears are part of measurement unit. Okay. So, effective strain gauge, active part is this thing, and actual length and the width is this part. This you understand. So, if the active gauge length is 10 millimeter, then this would be about 20 or 25 millimeter, something like that. So, that is the construction part. Gauge lead silver clad copper wire. So, their diameter is some fractional millimeter. Okay. Now, and 25 millimeter long means sometimes they come along with the strain gauge. Okay, then there are other gauges where we don't have those wires connected. We can directly connect these wires, but again note that these wires are plays a major role in measuring the strain. The resistance of this wire is also a factor in our strain measurement. So, what is the length, maximum length, what is the resistance, etc. These are also specified by the gauge manufacturers or the instrument manufacturers. There has to be some matched pair is there, some recommendation is there. So, now how measurement is done from the measurement unit and through this wires. Some voltage is applied in this strain gauge. That voltage is usually quite low, okay, limited to 5 volts. Actually, there are settings for 2 volt, 5 volt, 10 volt, etc. What happens if we increase this voltage? We get higher changes in resistance. But by increasing this voltage, what is the net effect? The current through this conductor, okay, that will also increase. Usually the current is small, 0.1 ampere, and if we increase voltage, this current will also increase. And heat loss here, that I square R loss as it is called, that will also increase, resulting in more heat. And then as these strain gauges are special unit, there are some limited manufacturers. Similarly, there are some limited manufacturers for strain measurement units. So, that is why the strain gauge has some standards. Different manufacturers, if they manufacture strain gauges as per their specification, the matching of the strain gauge with the strain instrument manufacturer will become difficult. So, there are some standard, and one such standard is the gauge resistance. Okay. So, this 120 ohm, 350 ohm and 1000 ohm, they are typical gauge resistance values. Yeah. Okay, this part is done. This is also whatever, some more elaboration on this drill, okay, on the ends and other things. Something is there, the schematic diagram part we have shown. Some other dimensions are specified. The foil strain gauges are etched from thin foil, typically 5 micron, bonded to a thin insulating carrier, typically 25 micron. So, that thickness of the gauge is also specified by the manufacturer there. Then what it is, this is foil gauge, okay, operates and same thing, slightly higher gauge factor, etc., etc. So, whatever these slides are available to you, okay, I am not going to discuss this. And wear type. Wear type means this wear type, right? So, the first development was this wear type. And in the very first, there was unbonded wire strain gauge. Because the Lord Kelvin himself carried out experiment on this wear type resistor. So, that also acts as a strain gauge because its resistance changes. And those were unbonded. Okay. So, these unbonded type strain gauges, they actually had some application in extensometer initially. But nowadays there are much improvement in extensometer also. But once upon a time there were some use of unbonded wire strain gauges. Then came the bonded type, bonded wire strain gauge. Okay. So, this there are major disadvantages of this bonded wear type. You understand, this is the bonded type. Okay. This is wear. So this wear again has to be confined within certain backing material, a top sheet, a bottom sheet, the thickness part will be there. Okay. So usually here, instead of laminate, there were paper type backing was there. Okay. And obviously this thickness of this bonded wear type strain gauge is much higher. I understand, because here this is not a foil, this is the wear. Okay. So this thickness, if this thickness is higher, whatever is the strain value on the surface and whatever is the strain value that is experienced by this wear, okay, that difference should increase.
Yes.
That is why their sensitivity is much less compared to this type of foil gauges. But anyway, these were the strain gauges that were available in the 80s, early 80s. Okay, up to 80s, although foil gauge is developed in 52, before 1980 they were not much used as such. They were very costly. Okay. So up to that time, up to in the 80s, we used to make strain measurement through this bonded type strain gauges. Nowadays it is very difficult to get this type of strain gauges. Okay. It happens in every area of technology. Right. So this is bonded type. Okay. Now desired characteristics, ability to measure. So these are the requirements. Okay. Desired in a strain gauge. Ability to measure strain precisely, small size, small weight, possibility of remote observation, independence of the influence of temperature, easy installation, stability of calibration, etc., etc. These are the requirements, although they are very difficult to maintain. So everything requires some correction, some special arrangement to be incorporated in the strain gauge. Okay. Some more are there. Linear response, low cost, dependability, possibility of using multiple arrangement, etc. Then whatever computation, etc. This is a separate part, the measurement unit. What else? Desired properties of the same thing, linearity we have already discussed. Okay. So this is important. One cannot expect to find all the desirable characteristics in any particular material with some adverse properties too. In general, the selection of material for sensing element, strain gauge will result in compromise depending upon the intended use of gauge. So here, to obtain these required properties, what we can do at the most? There are some effect of strain gauge material. So that is one choice. Then some other arrangements are also possible that we will see gradually. Features of the gauge, gauge series and type, that is specification of the strain gauge, backing or carrier material, self temperature compensation, number, whatever, active gauge length, grid and tab geometry, gauge resistance, options, etc. Now, why active gauge length is also an important parameter? Strain gauge Actually, it's measure strain over a certain area. Over a certain area, but this is specified as the strain at a point. So there is some error due to that. So that is taken care of by this active gauge length. Okay. So if this length is more, even the width is more, the deviation from exact value is more, right? Now again, our gauge resistance is a parameter. If resistance value is more, change in resistance is more. That way. Okay. So these are features. How to select a strain gauge. Then gauge material. This gauge series type of strain sensing alloy means the material of the gauge. All these things are required to select a strain gauge. Okay. So this is the user of the strain gauge who has to select a particular strain gauge. So based on which parameters? These are the parameters on which the user makes his or her decision. This is clear. Okay. Now let's see what is there. Selecting gauge length. Now, what are the objective here? So gauge length very low, that is required to measure strain concentration effect. There are, when there is a change in cross section, there is a stress concentration. Yes. To measure that stress concentration, that is again a quite complicated area of experimentation. Okay. If we have to use strain gauge, their length has to be limited to this space of time. Now for ordinary general strain measurement in metal, this is the usual gauge length. Then if the material is somewhat not that much homogeneous, so here for general application these are metals where the material itself is quite homogeneous, right? For non-metallic applications, there homogeneity of the material is not that uniform. Okay. So to take care of that, the gauge length is increased somehow. Okay. Some coarse material like concrete, okay, this gauge length is even high. So these are special purpose. Again, this is special purpose. So this is usually the general strain measurement. 2 to 6 or 6 to 10, so 6 millimeter, 10 millimeter gauge length is usually common. All the gauge manufacturers, they have this particular length of strain gauges. Other things are quite special. Now selecting a strain gauge, you have already discussed about these things. What are the factors to be considered, etc., etc. Okay. So through this thing, finally, we have selected strain gauge. So let us stop that part here. Let us now go into the part of strain gauge installation. So with this, suppose we have procured strain gauge, purchased from a manufacturer. Then we have to actually carry out the experiment, right? We have to measure the strain, and for that the strain gauge has to be mounted on the object. This is strain gauge installation. Let us see the procedure. These are the procedures. Okay, how to fix a strain gauge on a material. Say this is part of, this is a beam sort of thing. Okay, this is the base metal on which strain gauge will be fixed. You have to clean some part of the surface where we will mount the strain gauge. So first these are polishing by using sandpaper. Then this is the strain gauge which will mount in this area. So on the back surface of the strain gauge, okay, it means opposite to the solder tabs. on that surface. We put an adhesive, drop of adhesive, and then this is pressed at this particular prepared surface area. What will happen by this, say, thumb press? This adhesive, it will spread over the entire area, and some part of the adhesive, it will come out from the sides. That is what will happen. Okay. And cover the strain gauge with accessory polythene sheet strongly press. Press the strain gauge for approximately 1 minute. Afterwards, by this covering, put some covering and put some weight there. Okay. There is a curing time required for these adhesives. When the adhesive is cured, usually some few hours to 24 hours, maximum 1 day. So after that, this is removed. Okay. The covering, the weight by which there was a pressure mounted. When curing is done, it is removed, and the excess adhesive somewhat, this is removed then. Okay. Like this, when it has come out from the sides, some part is removed. The next part is, there are some solder tabs from which we need to carry out the soldering. Okay. Finally, this requires a cover. There are various ways of covering this region, such that these wires, they can get some tension, say during the experiment process. Okay. One can accidentally apply some force in this way, it gets a tensile force. That will ultimately affect here. Okay. To avoid those things, one has to cover this part as well. Okay. So that this tension of these wires, they don't transmit directly to the strain gauge. So completely cover the strain gauge, protruding adhesive, part of lead wear, etc., etc. This completes the mounting part. Okay, this part is clear. So these are installation accessories. Understand? Surface cleaning agent, adhesive is there. Then installation tools, solder, some wires. Okay, then protective coating. All these things are required. Now this is an actual mounted. A strain gauge is now mounted on a specimen. To understand this tensile test specimen, and the strain gauge can be used instead of the extensometer. We can directly measure strain from it. So from here, this lead wear, these wires, where they go? They go into the strain measurement unit. Okay. And then we carry out the test. We apply the force, the stress field in this region. The strain gauge make the sensing, and that measurement is reflected in this strain indicator. Then we make a plot of that. Strain versus load or stress versus load. But now next part is material. Okay. What are strain gauge materials? These are some materials, some more type of materials are given here. Strain sensing alloy, constant and isotope. Their composition, their life, etc., features of the individual strain gauge materials are specified here. Okay. So these things I am not going to discuss here. It is, we will get it in textbook or in the slides itself. You have to study from here. These are types of adhesives. Okay. Other types of adhesives. Okay, let us go back there. So these are roughly type of materials. Their compositions are given there. And then in a strain gauge, all these features are supplied, marked by some specification. This is a particular specification of a strain gauge, where different numbers and different letters, they have certain meaning. It is specified by the manufacturer. We will see if I think it's available in the particular slide for a particular operator. So this also I am not going to discuss here what are these things. Okay. Adhesive number, etc., foil backing. So all these specifications are there in this particular specification: type of foil, the gauge length, the resistance. So all the features of the strain gauges, they are specified through this number actually. So let us skip these things, and then comes the thermal compensation part. This is one of the method, okay, where an active gauge is there, which is in a thermal field. Okay, so the active gauge is under thermal field, and the actual stress is also there. This active gauge is subjected to actual stress plus the stress or strain coming from the thermal effect, and this is the compensation gauge. They are also known as the dummy gauge. This is compensating gauge. It is also known as dummy gauge, which is placed close to this active gauge, but there it is not subjected to the stress field. It's a dummy, but only the thermal effect is here. So it can be used as a compensating gauge also if there is some other effect that also will affect this gauge, and that particular gauge, they will compensate each other through this particular type of arrangement. So this type of arrangement is a part of our instrumentation, which we will discuss afterwards. Okay, what are these things? This particular circuit, what is this? What are these particular things? Okay. There is something written here. Okay, let me explain something. So you see, this gauge, they are usually connected with a Wheatstone bridge circuit. So we will see what is a Wheatstone bridge circuit afterwards. And there we have a supply voltage which is applied at these 2 points of this bridge circuit, and in the other 2 diagonal points of the bridge circuit there is a voltage integrator. And to complete the circuit we require 4 resistances. This is essential part of a Wheatstone bridge, right? So these 2 of the resistances, they are coming from the strain gauge itself. Okay. Active gauge and dummy gauge, they are completing this part of the circuit, this dotted lines. Now in other part, these are some resistance values which comes in the measurement unit itself. Okay. So corresponding to this resistance of the gauge as they are standard. Okay. Like 120 ohm, 350 ohm and 1050. That has to be specified in the measurement unit. So they have standard resistances by which they complete the circuit. And then what happens before measurement? Usually there is a variation in this resistance values. 120 ohm means not exactly 120 ohm. It cannot be 120.0000. Say 1%, 0.1%, whatever is the variation on the resistance. That is exactly not same with the resistance which is there in the instrumentation. So this requires some balancing, okay, which is known as the initial balance or zero balance. Instrument is zeroed. This is zero balancing initial.
Yes, we read message.
You know, in the as part of instrumentation, it is common. Yeah. So then this thermal effect, okay, that can be taken care of by using this dummy gauge or some, or actually it is compensating gauge. There is a magnetic field, other source, etc., which is inducing some gauge current, that will get compensated by such an arrangement. Then this is a special type of strain gauge where the gauge has a minimal effect of the thermal field, or say that change in gauge resistance due to change in temperature, that is shown here. Okay. So understand, these are the graphs. It is from 0 to 100 degree centigrade, how the gauge resistance changes. Okay. So these are plot of the induced strain, that means micro strain per degree centigrade. So if there is only thermal effect, then the strain gauge will indicate some micro strain due to this thermal field. So typical temperature characteristic of self temperature compensation foil gauge. Still it is there. Then cyclic level, what this particular figure shows the fatigue life of strain gauge. Okay. Similar to your fatigue life of a metal also. For low cycle values, the life is more,
Yes.
and for high cycle, the values are less. So this is the microstrain level. So if the experiment is carried out up to 5000 microstrain, or say 4000, we can go up to 100 cycles. So this part is clear, and for different gauge material, these fatigue lives are different. Okay. Different graphs for different materials. Okay. This is some reference book for strain gauge, and actually these handbooks, okay, this is what will contain the maximum information. These are manufacturers' handbook. Okay. So you have these slides, right, with you. So this is the part discussion on strain gauge. The next part would be our discussion on the strain measurement part. Okay. So let's go into that.